Home with God, Chapter 35. You do not have to be ordained to be a minister in the world. God has ordained you by virtue of your being alive. Okay, so I get that every soul is complete when it finally arrives on the other side. So this is the final piece of the puzzle for me. What happens when we get there? What is this work that we do, and how do we do it? When the soul says it is complete, when it answers the holy inquiry and says, "Let's go on," it moves immediately into the spiritual realm, where it begins acquiring the knowing of itself as what it experienced when it was merged with the light. That is, it begins to have the awareness of itself as a divine being. This becomes clear very fast, because in the spiritual realm, everything the soul desires, it produces immediately. There is no time lapse between conceptualizing something and knowing it as the self. This happens because in the spiritual realm, the soul creates at all three levels of creation simultaneously. In the physical world, it rarely does. So when I die, I suddenly begin to create at the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious levels all at once. You do so when you enter the spiritual realm. That is, in keeping with the metaphor, when you get through the core of the upper orange and move on to the other side. All the levels of consciousness become one upon the merging with the light, and it is this single consciousness with which you leave the chamber, the core of your being, and enter the spiritual realm. Likewise, all aspects of being, body, mind, and spirit, have become one. As well, all three tools of creation, thought, word, and deed, have become one. And finally, all three experiences of what you have come to call time, past, present, and future, have become one. Everything integrates. Indeed, death is a reintegration. Far from disintegration, death is reintegration. Every triune reality becomes singular, what some have described as the Holy Trinity becomes one. Because you are now creating with all the tools of creation at every level of awareness at once, your creations are instantaneous. I create at the supraconscious level in the spiritual world. Yes, and everything you desire is instantly made manifest in your knowing. Masters create from this level in the physical world as well. Their instant results are called miracles. So on the other side, I am truly in heaven, where I can manifest anything I desire. Yes, and what you desire is to come to full knowing of who you are, and then to recreate yourself anew in the next grandest version of that. This is the desire of all life, It is called growth. It is termed evolution. You will want to know all there is to know about being alive, being you, being divine. So this time in heaven or the spiritual realm is pure joy. Life in the physical realm can be pure joy as well. It is just that most souls do not know this. They have forgotten who they really are. It is difficult to describe the activity of your soul in the spiritual realm in much greater detail because of the limitation of your present level of consciousness. I can tell you that it is a time of great knowing. Yet there will come a moment when knowing will not be enough. The soul will seek to experience what it knows of itself in its new idea about itself. This, it understands, can occur only in the physical world. So the soul returns to physicality. Yes, happily and joyfully. Your soul returns to the core of your being, and once again, on the return journey, it responds to the holy inquiry. Do you know what you wish to know? Do you choose now to return to physicality? When the answer, thought, feeling is yes, your soul makes another choice to return to physicality in the same lifeline or as a different physical being. Is the soul limited to earth as a destination? Or can the soul return to physicality in some other form, on some other planet, or in some other location in the universe? As we discussed earlier in this conversation, there are many routes through the space-time continuum. In Stranger in a Strange Land, Robert Heinlein said, "There are so many when-wheres." Yes, he put it perfectly. And you may choose any one that you wish. Having done so, you enter once more into total immersion, which attenuates your life energy so that you may enter into the experience that you call birth. Thank you. Thank you for this description, and thank you for this entire conversation. I know that it has contained a lot of process descriptions, explanations through metaphor, science, and metaphysics of the cosmology of all of life and of how everything works. But it has also given me some wonderful spiritual insights and deeper understandings and awarenesses that have brought me comfort, and that I hope bring comfort to many others, especially people who are dealing with the death of a loved one, or those who themselves are approaching death. It is in the opportunity of every true minister of God. It is the opportunity of every true minister of God. And you are all just that, ordained or otherwise, to bring comfort to the dying. Yes, and having said that, it is sometimes difficult to find words to say to those who are grieving the loss of a loved one. A woman named Sheila wrote this to me a few years ago. Dear Neil, my brother Chuck died several years ago when he was only 27, and I can't seem to stop grieving. Every day I think of him, Everything I see reminds me of him. Nothing seems to matter to me anymore. I am chronically depressed. Can you help? Sheila. What can the average person say to someone like this? That is the question. After all, we are not all trained ministers. We are not all licensed counselors. We have not spent years in the helping professions. Well, what did you say? I answered the best way I could, based on what my conversation with God has given me. I said, Dear Sheila, I am sorry for your loss, and I understand your grief. There are some things that I would like to tell you, though, that may help you to repaint this memory on the canvas of your mind, so that when you look at it, you are not always sad. First, you must know that Chuck has not died that death. That death is a fiction and a lie and never ever takes place. That is number one. And that is something you must take into yourself as a truth of the highest order for any of the rest of this to make sense. Second, if we accept that Chuck is not the thing you call dead, but is in fact very much alive, then we must ask ourselves, where is he? What is he doing? And of course, is he happy? We'll answer the last question first. Chuck was never happier, no more joyful than he was at the moment of his transition from this earthly life. For in that moment, he knew once again the grandest freedom, the greatest joy, the most wondrous truth, the truth of his own being and of its oneness with all that is. Separation ended for Chuck in that moment, and his reunification with the all of everything was a glorious moment in the heavens and the earth. It was a time, indeed, for celebration, not for mourning. Yet mourning is understandable, given our limited awareness of what is truly happening, as well as the magnitude of our own personal loss which we are naturally experiencing. After a period of very natural grief, which we must be good enough to give ourselves, it then becomes our choice to stay in that place of utter devastation and mourning, or to move to a larger awareness and a grander truth, which allows us to smile. Yes, even as the thought of at the thought of his departure. However early, however abruptly, although nothing is early or abrupt in God's timetable, but all is perfectly timed. Should we choose to move to this larger awareness, we are then free to celebrate in fullness the life with which was Chuck's, the gift he bestowed upon all those he touched, and the wonder of his beingness and his love even now. We do this most by allowing Chuck himself to be completely free. Which brings us to the first question in the trio above. Where is Chuck now? In Conversations with God, Book 3, it was revealed to me that in the world of the Absolute in which God dwells, we are all everywhere. That is, there is no here or there. There is simply everywhere. Thus, in human terms, it is possible to say that we can be in more than one place at a time. We can be in 2 places or 3 places or any place we wish to be, having any experience we choose to. For this is the nature of God and of all God's beings. And what experience do we choose to have among others? The experience of oneness and empathy for those we love, just as we did while in bodily form. What that means is that Chuck loves you even now, not in some theoretical sense, but in a very real sense, with a living love that can and will never die. And that eternal and everlasting love causes Chuck, part of the essence that is Chuck, to come to you, to be with you, with the very thought of him. For the thought of one who loves us is an attraction and a pull that the essence of being cannot and will not deny and will never ignore. Chuck is with you even now as you are reading this, for you have him in mind, and a part of him is very much there with you. If you are very quiet and very sensitive to the moment, you will even be able to sense him, feel him, maybe even hear him. This is true of all people everywhere, and it explains the thousands and thousands of reports received every year of visits by departed loved ones to those who remain behind. Reports that psychiatrists, ministers, doctors, and healers of every kind have become very used to hearing and no longer question. Often what happens is that the essence of the beingness that flew to us at the very thought of it arrives in our space full of love and compassion and complete openness with us. That openness will allow the essence of our loved ones to know and understand completely what we are feeling and experiencing. If we think of that person with sadness, grief, and pain, the sadness we experience will be known to that essence. And since that essence is now pure love, it will lovingly seek to heal our sadness, or it will find it impossible not to want to do so. If, on the other hand, we think of that person with joy and celebration, our joy will be known to the essence of that person we have so deeply loved. And that essence will then feel free to move into its next grand adventure, knowing that all is okay with us. It will come back to be sure. It will return each time it is thought of. Yet its visits will be joyous dances in our mind, wondrous sparkling connections, brief yet shining moments, smiles made whole. Then the essence will whisk away once more, gladdened by the thought of your love and your celebration of its life, feeling complete in its interaction with you, although by no means ended. Now, in the process of helping us to deal with our grief and sadness, the essence of our loved one will stop at nothing, using any tool, borrowing any device, employing any method at its disposal, including perhaps a letter like this from a total stranger, to bring us the message of its unremitting joy in the place of its current residing, and the truth of the perfection of the process of life and transition. When we can celebrate the perfection, we allow the essence and the soul of our loved one to celebrate it as well, releasing it to the unspeakable wonders of its larger reality, honoring its presence in our lives, in its former physical form, now in this moment, and even forevermore. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. No more sadness, no more mourning, for no tragedy has truly befallen anyone. Yet special remembrance with smiles and tears. Yes, but tears of joy at the wonder of who we are, of who Chuck is, and of the unspeakable love of a God who could have created all this for us. Celebrate Sheila. Give yourself and Chuck and all those whose lives are touched by both of you the gift of a lifetime. The gift of joy replacing sorrow, of gladness overtaking the pain of loss, of genuine gratefulness, and of peace at last. God's blessings, not the least of which are Chuck's life and Chuck's presence with you even now, surround you, Sheila. Go now and be who you truly, really are, and smile. Chuck would have it no other way. Blessings. Neil. That was a wonderful reply. I am sure that Sheila found it very, very comforting. Yes, but was it true? Or am I just making it all up? Yes. Yes, what? Yes, to both questions. It is true because you are making it all up. You may have it any way that you wish. You keep telling me that, and I keep wanting to have it be a certain way because that's the way it really is. But that is the way it really is. That is the way it really is, because you keep creating it that way. If you wish to create it another way, it will be another way. This can be said incidentally about the whole of your life on earth as it is in heaven. Well, if I'm really creating my life and the life around me the way that I choose, then I choose for all of us to truly embrace the call to our own ministry in the world. I am so inspired by people such as Joan Beck, whose name I've changed to protect this person's identity, who gifted me in January 2003 with a personal sharing of how the death of her son changed her life. Jason, her firstborn son, was 18, a senior in high school. He tragically drowned the first day of swim class. His death devastated Joan, her family, and her community. Joan explained that she never realized just how physical the healing of her grief could be. 2 short days after Jason's death, she felt him with her. She says that she couldn't have made it through the heartbreaking experience without him there. Joan's experience of connecting with her son spiritually instigated her journey to understand the meaning behind Jason's death. As the daughter of a United Methodist minister, she believed that God was present, but expecting her to take care of her own life. But she just couldn't figure out why her beloved son had to die. After all, Joan had always been a good mother, teaching her children right from wrong. After Jason physically passed away, Joan explained to me that her son remained a partner in her search for answers. He would guide her even when she resisted the truth. Her ability to forgive the gym teacher is one example of the way Jason continued to play a role in Joan's life. Joan had never had much contact with the gym teacher, but after Jason's death, she kept running into him. Jason helped Joan realize that forgiving the gym teacher was the proper course of action. Now she feels liberated from her feelings of anger. Although she worries that some people might think she's nuts, she takes solace in the fact that she's found a new way of life. When Joan shared her story with me, I was touched by her experience, and I thanked her for sharing it with me. Then I said, "I know, Joan, how desperately you must have felt when Jason died. And I am so glad that he found a way to stay connected with you, so that you might have his help in dealing with all of this, and in leading you to larger and larger truths. I am clear now that this was Joan's purpose from the very beginning. Each of us comes into each other's lives for a reason and a purpose. It almost always has to do with some level of spiritual growth. You have also come into the life of this gym teacher for the same reason. As terrible as you must feel about what happened, I can imagine what he must feel as well. Even though he may not show it, I am certain that he is devastated inside. This happened on his watch. He can never live that down, never do anything to change it. He will cry to himself at night for many, many years, I am sure. I hope that you have not only forgiven him in your heart, but talked with him in person and shared your human love with him to let him know that you understand how terrible he must feel. Even if he isn't showing it, I repeat. And that you want him to know, not that you forgive him, which makes it sound like he did something wrong for which he is guilty, but that you are letting him off the hook. But that you have no need to forgive him, because you are clear that he is a good man, that he did nothing on purpose or with malicious intent, and that what happened was a tragedy that just happened. It just happened. These things occur in life. These things happen. And no one is at fault in things such as this. Tell him that you understand this, and that you hope he has been able to get on with his life as you are now getting on with yours. Still ready and able to bring joy and love and laughter and happiness into the lives of others. Yes, and tell him that Jason wants him to remember always the many hundreds of young men whose life he has touched in positive and important ways, and that his days of doing that are far from over, and that to learn how to live with a mistake is to transform tragedy into blessing, healing all of humankind, for all of us have made mistakes in life, and all of us are human, and all of us also capable of giving and bringing much love to the world, and all of us will if we allow ourselves to. Tell him things like that, for this man needs to be healed of his wound, and you are one of the most powerful people who can help him do that. Yes. Love and hugs. Neil. This is how Joan can be a real minister. You do not have to be ordained to be a minister in the world. God has ordained you by virtue of your being alive. You can be and are a minister right now, every day. If you look for it, you will find a chance to bring your ministry of healing and of love to someone new. What can I say to those who are dying? Until now, this has always been a tough one for me, for most of us, I would imagine. What comfort can I offer them? If you find people who believe that forgiveness is what is required to make them worthy of heaven, offer them forgiveness and tell them that God does so also. If you find people who believe that they will be stepping right into the arms of God and their loved ones after their death, offer them confirmation and tell them that God does so also. If you find people who believe there is no life of any kind after death, offer them an alternative view and tell them that God does so also. God does so through many events of life, in 1,000 different voices, during 100 different moments, heard by all those who will truly listen. This conversation offered to you and to all of humanity is one of those events. And so I invite you here to offer this prayer to those who are dying. The God of your understanding is with you now, even in this hour, at this precise moment. If you have no understanding of God, that will not matter. God is still here in this place with you right now, whispering to your soul, you are welcome whenever you are ready to come home. You shall not be turned away, not for any cause or reason. If there be cause or reason to believe to be valid, you believe to be valid. God, should you want God to, in this moment, invalidates it. God, should you want God to, in this moment, erases it. God, should you want God to, in this moment makes all paths clear, all roads straight, saying, Make way for my beloved who chooses to be home with God. This prayer is offered for you, wonderful child of the universe. As you embark on the most joyful journey you have ever taken, filled with wondrous surprises, a journey into the greatest happiness you have ever known, and the grandest experience you will ever have. Dream now of glorious things. Dream of every fantasy come true. Dream of every pain disappearing, of everything of which time has robbed you being given back to you again. Dream of seeing loved ones once more, those who have gone before and those who will follow. Know for a certainty that when you leave here, you will be again with all those who have held a place in your heart and have gone before. And do not worry about those you leave behind, for you will see them too again and again, and love them too again and again, through all eternity, and even in the present moment. For there can be no separation where there is love, and no wanting where there is only now. Smile, then, at the joyful anticipation of what is in store. These gifts have been laid up for you, and God has only been waiting for you to return home to receive them. Peace, joy, and love are you, and are yours, now and always. So it is, and so it shall be, forever and ever. Amen.